We stand tall, never fall to the rise with wings of Atlanta. We stand tall, never fall to the rise with wings of
Welcome everyone, this is Nichel Anderson and this is my podcast shows. I am going to be doing my power of reading on both of my podcast shows. So that's Nichel Anderson. So that's Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond, as well as Surviving Your Journey Towards Success. So today is my Power of Reading week. I'm so excited. This is a week that I take time out to focus on what I do love that helped me on my journey, and that is reading books. So I pick certain books or poems and I read them. Of course, I started with one of my famous and very important and I love mentor, that's Dr. W.E.B. DuBois. He wrote the book Souls of Black Folk. It went completely global in that timeline over 100 years ago now, and it really changed the landscape to talk about the race issue here in the United States. He became a powerful figure right around the time where Booker T. Washington already had started his path and was a very well-known, famous. He had a different approach to deal with the free slaves. He had a different type of background and grew up. And W.E.B. DuBois came on the scene and basically just said, no, that's old school, or that's the old way. We need to be able to build and read and learn and create and not still be in a different way. So they had different types of philosophies. Now I did a movie of W.E.B. DuBois, Dawn of a New Day. Do check it out. I'll have the link in the description. If not, if you Google it, it is a Twitter page on about it. I still call it Twitter, y'all. You can check out the film, share it. And it's about the timeline where he's writing these chapters of the souls of black folk that will be famous and give him a huge microphone. He already had one. He was in Atlanta, New York, traveled the world, and he was in Atlanta before he moved to Ghana as an invite by the president of Ghana back then. And so I'm very, very, I just love him. When I came across his writing of being an editor, and I talk about my journey being an editor of the Harlem Renaissance later this week, it just kind of changed my life because I didn't realize how powerful that timeline was, because we don't get a lot of black history, particularly when I grew up. So it's hard to find something like that, and to see all of this intellectual creativity, the commitment to bring about something new, it's just kind of floored. And when I read his book for the first time, I cried. Process that. So it's a powerful collection of essays. I could understand why, where there was no social media back then, was no, I think, cars in the beginning maybe. I don't know. At the end of the day, it went global. It's just to be still that powerful, even now over 100 years. If you go and you read the reviews, people are still like connected to it even today. That's some powerful force of just the commitment of the purpose of what he could do just by the power of writing. That's something, okay? And anyhow, so I talk about that, of course, in the movie that I did of his life, of his journey. I bring in Booker T. Washington. He makes an appearance, so there's some very powerful scenes in that. Booker T. Washington, to me, was an expert, powerful speaker. When he spoke, he drew in crowds, so to me, he was very powerful in that, and to transcend what he wanted to say and just talk in a way that would just motivate you and have you stand. And a lot of pictures that you see in history, a lot of people that went to see to hear him speak was standing. Of course I wouldn't say where they can have chairs, but it was just that powerful frame of showing how powerful he was, the power of speech. So you got to give him what he had, right? And W.E.B. DuBois was powerful at the pen, and he can speak, and don't get me wrong, you get him riled up, he'll go at it, but nonetheless, it was just powerful that both of those leaders at the same timeline was here in the States. They was here in Atlanta. So that's why my song Atlantans is powerful when I say that line in the lyric that I wrote. You know, we are from powerful leaders. It's not exactly that line, but basically that's what I'm saying. And I sing that because it's true. So Atlanta has a lot of history, and today we're going to talk about he wrote, Dr. W.E.B. DuBois, and that is of the Rings of Atlanta. So in this particular part that I'm starting from is from the last year that I had read up to. So this is a continuation, part 2. And basically what I'm talking about is where he goes more deep into what he means about where Atlanta should be, what's the powerful. He could have picked any city he wanted. And one of the cities beyond living in New York was here in Atlanta. He could have picked any country that he wanted to live thereafter Atlanta, and he picked Ghana. Process that. When his timeline came to the point and everybody that showed up to give their respect, it was dignitaries and people of rank and not rank showed up. So he's an institution. And he was part of the Harlem Renaissance to bring about a collective to show you are somebody of worth and here's your history. So when I sing my song Atlantans, of course I'm going back way to Atlantis with my other podcast show, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. But I'm also talking about the journey, the standing of learning and connecting with humans. That's what Martin Luther King was saying. And you could say with Malcolm X, he just had a different approach. I always said I feel like they were the next one with the baton to bring forth what the legacy should have been and what all those slaves fought for, to have freedom, for it to manifest. So it was a fight to get that done. Right where you had these two, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. DuBois. And W.E.B. DuBois in this see the prosperity of Atlanta, see to not use the energy that I go in my song way back from Atlantis, but to use it in the right way. So he write about this in a collective of books that I'm celebrating the power of books, where we're reading one of the powerful makers, the powerful writers of the century, of the last century, into now that is still powerful today, and talking about the city of Atlanta that he lived in. That's why I'm saying it's powerful. You have to be famous. You have to be at least want to be successful. You have to be courageous of the energy of Atlanta, because that's what it requires. I'm gonna let that sink in. So when I sing my song Atlantans, it's not just for African American history, black folks as you say. It's from any other race that can connect to the point of you have to strive for success and you don't give up, and you remember what it was before and what you can bring it to. It's passing on the baton and building something. So if you don't look exactly like me, it doesn't really matter. It just matters what you do with what you was born to be. I'm going to say that again. What you were born to be, the Atlantans. So in here, he talk about the Atlantans to be morally correct. Talk about in Atlanta, the city of the energy of it. Don't be like this tale, this story of being wrapped up in the beauty and, self-indulgence, but to plant seeds that will give forth to a blossom of opportunities to those that didn't get that for over 400 years. And we're talking about the slavery at that point, at that aspect. So this particular part of it is great to kind of look into the deepness of his essays. So let's go ahead and get started. And let's begin for this week of my special week, Power of Reading, y'all. How about that? We're going to go ahead and get started with Dr. W.E.B. DuBois. This essay is a part of his infamous book, The Souls of Black Folk. The title of this essay is a continuation from last year, Power of the Week, where I focus on Of the Rings of Atlanta. We're going to continue on where I left off last year. And we're going to start. And let's begin. And if this is the fault of America, how dire a danger lies before a new land and a new city, least Atlanta, stooping for mere gold, shall find that gold a cue, a curse. It was no maiden's idle whim that started this hard racing. A fearful wilderness lay about the feet of that city after the war. Feudalism, poverty, the rise of the third estate, serfdom, the rebirth of law and order. And above and between all the veil of waste. How heavy a journey for weary feet. What wings must Atlanta have to flip over all this hollow and hill, through sour wood and sullen water, and by the red waste of sun-baked clay? How fleet must Atlanta be, if she would not be tempted by gold to profound the sanctuary? The sanctuary of our fathers has, to be sure, few gods, some sneer all too few. There is the thrifty Mercury of New England, Pluto of the North, and Ceres of the West, and there, too, is the half-forgotten Apollo of the South, under whose aegis the maiden ran. As she ran, she forgot him. Even as there, when butcher's Venus was forgot, she forgot the old idol, the old idea of the Southern gentleman, that new word here of the grace and courtliness of patrician and knight and noble, forgot his honor with his foibles, his kindliness with his carelessness, and stooped to apples of gold, to man busier and sharper, thriftier and more unscrupulous. Golden apples are beautiful. I remember the latest days of boyhood, when orchids and crimson and gold tempted me over fence and field, and to the merchant who has dethroned the planter is no despicable parvenu. Work and health, work and wealth are the mighty levels to lift this old new land. Thrift and toil and saving are the highways to new hopes and new possibilities. And yet the warning is needed, lest the willy Hippomenies tempt Atlanta to thinking that golden apples are the goal of racing and not mere incidents by the way. Atlanta must not lead the South to dream of material prosperity as the touchstone of all success. Already the fatal might of this idea is beginning to spread. It is replacing the finer type of Southerner with vulgar money-getters. It is bearing the sweeter beauties of the Southern life beneath pretense and ostentation. For every social ill, the penitentiary of wealth has been urged. Wealth to overthrow the remains of the slave feudalism, wealth to raise the crack a third estate, wealth to employ the black serfs, and the prospect of wealth to keep them working. Wealth as the end and aim of politics and as the legal tender for law and order. And finally, instead of truth, beauty, and goodness, wealth as the idea of the public school. Not only is this true in the world which Atlanta typifies, but it is threatening to be true of a world beneath and beyond. That world, the black world beyond the veil. Today, it makes little difference to Atlanta, to the South, what the Negro thinks or dreams or wills. In the soul light of the land, he is today and natural, will long remain unthought of, half forgotten. And yet, when he does come to think and will and do for himself, and let no man dream that day will never come, then the part he plays will not be the one of sudden learning, but words and thoughts he has been taught to lips in his race childhood. Today, the ferment of his striving toward self-realization is to the strife of the right world like a wheel within a wheel. Beyond the veil are smaller, but like problems of ideas, of leaders, and the lead, of serfdom, of poverty, of order, and subordination. And through all the veil of race, few know of these problems. Few who know notice them, and yet there they are, a waiting student, artist and seer, a field for somebody, sometime to discover. He either has the temptation of Hippomeny, penetrated already in the smaller world, which now indirect and indirect must influence the larger for good or ill. The habit is forming of interpreting the world in dollars. The old leaders of Negro opinion in the little groups where there is a Negro social consciousness are being replaced by new. Neither the black preacher nor the black teacher leads as he did 2 decades ago. Into their places are pushing the farmers and gardeners, the well-paid porters and artisans, the businessman, all those with property and money. And with all this change, so curiously parallel to that of the other world, goes too the the same inevitable change in ideas. Insane. All right, let's get into this. This is a lot that he's presenting of his tolerance of the timeline that he's seeing, that what Atlanta should be, what Atlanta was, what Atlanta can be, to not get wrapped up in the materialistic things of getting wealth but still not sharing, for understanding that all of that leads to Wahala. So as he relate to Hippopotamus, I'm gonna say it when he relates to Hippopotamus, that particular storyline, that type of fable, what have you, of being caught up in the beauty, being caught up in the rise, and not really planting good seeds for everyone, particularly the black folks that was there, getting the freedom that they deserve, and not being overseen by making another dollar with here or there. Learning about the huge legacy of the city and where it can continue to grow. Like, the work wasn't over. We still had to make amends to make sure that it was fair. So in this particular poem where he talks about that, he gives a very moment of time to talk about the discussion of wealth. What do you want to do with it? What are you going to plant for other generations, and for the generation that is currently, when he was writing this, and what he foreseen, that this should not go in the way that it can lead to corruption of the soul, corruption of the spirit, corruption of what those that are there, acknowledging what they need, which is businesses, which is property, not just for the rich, not just for who you connected with. That's what he was saying in this powerful section of The Wings of Atlanta. So he talks about the history of the city, but he also mirrored it as an example to Hippopotamus, and that particular tale there about being caught up in something that over time it can be shallow. Over time, people won't connect to the vibration of the legacy and the purpose and the energy of Atlanta, and be caught up in just gaining property, gaining wealth, and not really flourishing on what needs to be is the root. So that's where he talks about teachers, the other leaders that needs to come together and see what he was seeing, that is going to get caught up in all the grandeur, but it's not of the grandness of Atlanta and what it can bring, but not into what it needs, which was still, particularly at that time, the healing of the races, the healing of getting their fair share of all the labor and the creativity, to being acknowledged about that, and to be able to share and not just let it be one-sided. So this particular overall, one of the lines, I'm going to go back over one of them that really stuck out to me. Several it was, but it was this one where, when the wealth, I'm going to talk about that. When he talks about wealth to employ the black serfs and the prospect of wealth to keep them working. Wealth as the end and aim of politics, and as the legal tender for law and order. And finally, instead of truth, beauty and goodness. Meaning that truth, that's the first word you can connect with what he's saying. Truth is balance. Truth is love. Truth is fairness. Not to who you know and how you can go about and getting what you want, and then building from that and having an enterprise here in the vibration of Atlanta, where it's basically you're successful. You can ride that energy and become the success that you deserve, but you have to share that, and you have to invest in those that made it be. And that part is very particular. Instead of really focus on truth, beauty, and goodness, wealth as the idea of the public school. He was a very particular one about learning, reading books, writing, giving back, education. He was very highly in that. That was his whole main journey, education. And so when you don't invest in quality education, when you don't invest in quality farming, food, health, you don't invest in the mind, motivation of who they are. That's what I get from beauty and goodness that he said. Instead of worrying about all of that, you need to be really focusing on this to make sure that you use the enormous energy of Atlanta towards the goodness of what it intended to be. Let it be the Mecca that is vibrant for all races, particularly black folks because they didn't get it. So that right there stuck out really to me. The other part where he hones on what I'm saying when I break down this part of his essay is in this. In the sole life of the land, he is today and naturally will long remain, unthought of, half forgotten, and yet when he does come to think and will and do for himself, and let no man dream that day would never come, then the part he plays will not be one of the sudden learning, but words and thoughts he has been taught to lips in his race of childhood. So before that, he talks about what Atlanta symbolizes is opportunity, and not be threatened by the shallowness of just looking at getting materialistic things that he said in the beginning of this section of his essay, but to look for the giving and the sharing of the beauty of what truth is, and that is balance. And it was an unbalance after slavery ended, and this was the rebuilding and the reconstruction of it. And he felt that Atlanta was a part of that Mecca that can go supersonic, and to not be entrapped of what he compared to that tale of Hippomenes. Alright, so with that done and said, I love his books, if you can tell. I love this essay. I love it because it talks about, it's a forewarning, it's an introduction to the history of Atlanta, but also the forewarning of the possibilities of where it was in history at that time and where it can be, what he saw. And for coming from someone like that, it means something, the city of Atlanta. So for that, it's very inspiring. It's motivation. It talks about even our own journey to make sure you don't get caught up in this or that, and you focus on what your purpose is, and you can continue to be what you was born to be. That's what he was saying here, and I think that it's a beautiful way. Of course, he came with it, swinging here and there, but he presented it in a way that sometimes you have to shake the cage in order to hear the message. You hear me? All right, and guess what? That starts my Power of the Week. Do tune in. I'll be releasing more episodes this particular week, and I'm looking forward. I love focusing on books. I hope you are too. You pick a book and you read and share which one that you want. You can leave it in the comments. You can send it to me, whatever that you feel, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me for my opening of my Power of the Week this month. And guess what? The 23rd is W.E.B. DuBois' birthday. Check out the song that I released on his birthday last year, Kingship. All right, thank you.
Standing in our divinity of our royal race. Atlantans, MOLIAE, while we are remain for all the saints we gave. Nichel, MOLIAE, Queen Empress. Nichel, MOLIAE, one of us. You hear me? We refrain from Mars. We are bold like no others. Of divinity. They wish better men success for a unity of our royalness. We are Atlantans. Nichel, MOLIAE, we never been. We rise to never end. Power breakers. We are power. We are power. Atlantans. Power made. No little, no richer. We have crownship of kings and queens. Marked in history. We Atlantans. Creativity. Time is now. The time has come. Who is that? Will you be ready? Of all those famous must enter domain of Atlanta. Atlanta. We are. We forever stand tall. King. We are. Rest. Bold mold of divinity. For a unity of our royalness.
No matter how high or low you go, you gotta go to Atlanta to be the most of history. Hey, Atlanta, we rise. Atlantans, we are.
We forevermore. Ball, multitude creativity.
We give back. Hey,
Woo.
hey, hey, hey.
Yeah, yeah.
La la.